Hi, everyone. Welcome to this new episode of the Rapido podcast. Today, I have the pleasure to introduce you to Marco Tosoni. He started his program management career in 2011 in Alcatel after he actually took the first steps as a software engineer. Then he continued for 9 years at Google, where he eventually became head of program management, and then moved on back closer to the startup world, first in Kraken, where he was also director of program management, and then as a tech advisor to many startups. So today he's here to explain us exactly what are the basics that we need to know about program management, maybe a little bit also about product management. What is the role of an advisor like himself for a tech startup? And yeah, Marco, I'm very excited to have you here. Thank you for joining.
Thanks for inviting me.
All right, so let's start with the basic question. How would you explain program management to a child? What are, like someone like me that doesn't know much about it, how would you approach it?
A little bit of a grew up child, but okay. That's so. What I mean, and I would say project and program management for a second together. We can discuss the differences between the two later, uh, but they kind of try to solve the same problem. Project and program management is about getting things done. So when you have to deliver something large, something complex, you need to have coordination. You need to have a little bit of rigor in the way you actually execute your plan, you build your plan, you engage with the right people, finding the right balance between engaging too many and too few people, right? So the art of program management and project management is about knowing how to do all those things in the right way to get to the end of a project in the best possible way.
Okay, perfect. And I think you already mentioned one of the main questions people will have starting this podcast, which is what are exactly the differences between product management, project management, program management? Which type of role should I think about based on the necessity of my company?
Absolutely. So let's start by saying that the smaller is the company. So here we are speaking primarily to tech startup, right? If I understand correctly. So most probably small company. In small companies, these roles blend into each other. So they kind of tend to be maybe there is one person covering all these roles. More the company grows, more you need to have specialized people taking on these roles, and then you split this responsibility in different roles. But let's start by defining these roles. Okay, so project management. The definition of project management is the let's say project management is about getting a project completed. A project is something that has a beginning and an end. So building a new stadium, you start and eventually you will finish. Building a new network, yeah, yeah, except yeah, you might finish the project without finishing the stadium, right? You run out of money and then you have to finish the project. But that said, a project has a beginning and an end. Okay, so project manager is responsible to get from the beginning to the end of the project, following what they are known as the three constraints. The three constraints are quality, time, and cost. So you can play on these three dimensions, imagine, to get to the end of the project in the best possible way. So you can increase cost, you double the amount of people you're using, to to be sure you are kind of delivering on quality and in time. You can decide to reduce the quality because you don't have more money, so you reduce the quality and then you stay within without adding more money and without delaying, or you just keep doing what you're doing and you delay, right? So these are the three dimensions. That's what a project manager does. A program manager instead is responsible of a program. What is a program? A program is more uh, is something that instead is ongoing and has to do with business objectives, right? And so it's usually something that will keep going. Many projects might belong to a program. So let's say that the program is about improving the reliability of your company. Now, as part of this, you might have multiple projects, each of them contributing to some extent to improve the reliability. And that's what a program manager does. So the program manager is usually more responsible of a larger set of projects. In some cases, the program manager is also the project manager of those. Another is the product manager, where instead has a slightly different responsibility. Product management is about leading the product, right? Setting the vision. What I usually tend to say is product management is more about future looking, while program management is about taking care of the present. We need to deliver, right? One of the quality that I really appreciate about product managers is being visionary. If I speak to a product manager who can tell me something about the product that will just make me roll my eyes, then he's not really visionary. If he's just telling me things that are just slightly incremental and I can most probably think myself about the product, I don't feel it doesn't mean that you have to be visionary to be a product manager. You can also be a very strong guy. But in general, product management is more about product evolution. And again, in small startups, you will have the role of a product manager. Usually it's called product manager, but he's also doing product owner and program management and project management at the same time. It's the one person doing all of this.
Okay, perfect. So let me see if I got the famous 20% to really differentiate the roles
Yes.
as simply as possible. So a product manager is someone that, let's say it's a small CEO of their own product. In that sense, they also are more future looking. While the biggest difference between someone managing a project and someone managing the program is that the first one has usually a time constraint, like a set deadline, while a program manager that doesn't have a specific deadline. Will they have maybe a specific goal that they need to achieve after which maybe the program is completed?
Yeah, usually programs are not are completed when the objective is not relevant anymore, right? They might have KPIs as goals, right? So let's say that we start a program to increase by 20% the security, reduce by 20% the number of vulnerabilities of our products, right? Then we will start a number of projects. Each of them may be contributing to reduce by 1 2%. Suddenly we reach the minus 20%, and there is a business decision. Do we want to keep reducing it, or we're good enough, right? If it's good enough, most probably you are going to just finish the program and close the group. Or you might say, yeah, I think we should keep this going because we need to improve further,
Mhm.
right? And so you move
Yeah,
on. Uh,
and maybe make it or made it make it
yeah,
in maintenance mode. I guess that's another option. All
right,
right.
right.
And
If I
would you say is there?
If
Go
I
on, go
can
on.
add just one small thing, usually, especially in big tech companies, you will see this trio: the program manager, the product manager, and the technical lead working
Mhm.
together as peers. The three of
Yeah.
them are the three key figures that will be responsible to get the stuff done and deliver a new product. Product manager thinking about bringing the market knowledge, the customer understanding, uh, and trying to shape what the product will need to be successful in the market. The technical lead coming up with the technical solution, right? How do we build what the product manager is actually describing? And then the program manager being sure that all this is glued together into something that you can execute, right? It is realistic, it is achievable, and we will get there not in 10 years, but maybe in 6 months.
Yeah. All right, makes sense. And would you say are there pivotal moments or maybe specific milestones or specific cases where it becomes clear this company needs a product manager and also this company needs a program manager? Did you see any maybe pattern also in the companies you advised or the companies you worked on?
Yeah. And I mean, as I said, I think that the beginning, usually the first role or the first talent you want to hire is more, if you don't have it already in the founding team, is a product manager, but be sure that they also take responsibility of the program manager. That's, I think, is the first one you hire. And when do you need one is when you realize that you don't have enough product vision. Sometimes I've seen many tech startups having a brilliant idea. Now they work towards that idea and they deliver. And they don't ask themselves what's next, right? But if they are launching a product in the market, they need to have a long-term vision. They can't just be delivering one feature after the other because their customers are asking for it, right? So when the company realizes that they are struggling having this vision, that they don't have time or skills to build such vision, that's the time where they want to most probably start hiring a product manager so he's fully accountable of this work. Different thing is about program management. Usually, if you are considering hiring a full-time program manager, uh, it the best, let's say, the best moment to do it is when you realize that your company, for some reasons, is not effective enough in getting stuff done. It becomes slow. There are too many cross team dependencies. Teams are not collaborating well with each other. There is no roadmaps for products. It looks like kind of you are operating on a day-to-day basis. And you want to introduce a little bit more rigor and structure, more predictability in the way you do product development. That's the right time to introduce some program management.
So it seems like program management necessity, if your company is working well, should only arise, let's say, after maybe 200 employees or so.
200 is
Or
a
you think that's
lot.
a
200 is a lot. I would say, in general, I would say maybe 100, maybe less than 100. It's
okay?
also largely depend on what the company is doing.
Yeah,
Companies
of course.
where large part of their um, large part of the company working on operational aspects, right? So project delivery, don't forget about delivering projects specific to specific customer. There are some businesses that are about building custom solution for each customer. In that case, you really need someone to take care of that project. And maybe you have a company of 10 people, right? Or 15 people, but the core of your business is to deliver dedicated custom projects. In that case, you most probably want to have a project manager early enough because you don't want to miss the customer expectation. If you tell the customer in 6 months, they should have something in 6 months. And if nobody's taking care of this, it will not magically happen.
Mhm. Yeah, makes sense. And going back to what you said about product management, you mentioned, yeah, founders that do not have product vision, they definitely need to hire product managers sooner. Isn't that to you a bit of a red flag? Like I was thinking about it, and uh, I think I couldn't think of many successful founders that I met that also were lacking this product vision. I would say that's a common trait that most have. Like the product is their baby, they have the vision. Maybe sometimes they also need someone to come in and challenge those opinions. I guess that could also be an advantage of bringing in some product person. Um, so yeah, did you actually see some founders that managed to successfully bring on product managers very early on, and those people took ownership of the product? How did these two visions collide together or work together?
Yeah. So you're right. The majority of the founder have this vision. What I discover is as the company grows, founders get pulled into all different discussion, funding, investors, maybe hiring, growing, and they simply don't have time to keep thinking about their baby. So their baby's there and is blocked to the idea they had when they found the company that maybe now is 2 or 3 years old with, yes, more additional feature, but that's just incremental stuff, right? There was no true thinking on, okay, what is the next revolution we want to bring in our product, right? um, it's not true for all companies, but in some companies this is the case, right? When the founder realize they don't have the time anymore for this product management, then they have to hire someone, and it's important they let these people do their job. They don't just tell them what to do. The other situation I have seen where they need product management very early is for very tech driven startups, where the startup is just growing from very tech founders who know very well how to solve a challenging problem that maybe nobody else ever solved. They might have a very brilliant idea, but that's just an idea about solving a problem. It's not an idea about building a product. And there is a large difference. The first question I ask to many of the startup is, oh, when I feel that this is the case, I usually tell them, oh, this is great. Nobody ever solved this. Have you asked yourself why? Because the immediate thing they have is because we are the smartest. But sometimes it's true, and sometimes the answer is just because nobody in the world wants this problem to be solved. Nobody in the world needs this solution. So you're building something, you're building a solution for a problem that nobody else, right? And these are the kind of things that the product manager should just do daily. Think about who is the user, what is the market, what are we going to fit. So those are situations where it's usually important to have product managers early on in the company.
Yeah, makes sense. So let's say that you are one of those founders that, started their product and they find themselves pulled on all directions from funding, from marketing, sales, whatever it might be. And so you need to hire someone to manage your product, someone very junior because you still need to close the funding round. So you don't have a lot of budget, someone that doesn't have a lot of experience. You sit down to them. What are the first concepts that you teach them about product management? It's like, okay, these are some fundamentals that you can try to live by. I guess it's hard to find something that applies all the time, but like the core guidelines that they should follow, what would you say those are?
Okay. I'll answer your question, but I want to make first a comment about the situation you described. If you are a founder, you're hiring for a key role, you don't have the time to work with this person because you're hiring someone to do the work, you don't hire a junior person. I understand you might not have the money for it, but you might want to offer equities. You need to attract the right talent, and a junior person might not be the person that you need, except if you believe that this is not a key role, in which maybe you can say, okay, I'm fine if this is not going very fast or if this will require my daily attention, in which case it's fine to hire a junior person. But junior person needs supervision and help. You can't just hire a junior person and expect them to be operate independently in a key role. That said, let's assume that the founder in this case has the time and now they are hiring this person. um, the most important things for this product program manager, let's say, doing both of them, is bring them up to speed on what are the goals, bring them up to speed on all the decisions that were made, bring them up to speed on where you are and what are the plans, and allow them to get some time to learn more about the products. They have to get their hands dirty. You don't want a product manager joining the company and on the second day just shipping the new vision for the product. It's not going to work. You want them to understand everything and all decisions that were made, bring them up to speed on everything, be sure that you're aligned, and then at that point, you can ask them to drive the new product vision. You can ask them to just build a roadmap. You can ask them to build a plan to maybe satisfy some goals that you as a founder are setting for the company.
Mhm.
But this is
So
something that you
with
can do
getting
with a senior person. A junior person might require a lot of supervision to get this done, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good catch, a good caveat. Of course, it was more of a way of asking you
Yeah.
the question on the basics for the role. But I would also add that if product management is your skill, then you should rather hire for the roles that you do not know how to
I
do, right?
I completely agree.
So
I sometimes there is this tendency that people as a founder decide which is the most important based on their assumption. And I said, okay, I'm the founder, I take the most important, and then I hire for the other one. And while sometimes the right way to approach this is as a founder, you should take the one that you are better at, maybe you enjoy the most, and hire for the role where you don't have the skill or you don't have the experience, right? And it's not about the more or the less important.
so you also talked about getting their hands dirty. What would you say are Of course, it depends on the product, but usually the most effective ways of getting your hands dirty is it customer calls, if the product allow for it, should they build something with it? I guess it's usually a mix of all of these things, but yeah, what's your feeling?
So what I would do is, first thing, you have to try the product as a customer. So maybe the first week, just play around with every single feature that exists today. They try to put themselves into the customer shoes or the user shoes and said, okay, this is a user story, or this is what users try to accomplish with our product. Let me try to do it. So they can, without too much bias, because they don't know the internals. Because here is the problem. When you, as the one who built the product, try your own product, everything will be wonderful. The reason is that you are behind every single decision that were made. Now give it to a customer or to someone without any previous knowledge of any decision and tell them go use it. And they will highlight the friction point. So get your product manager or your program manager or your new engineer to do this before getting the biases is amazing because they will experience themselves the pain that your customer are experiencing. And this is even more important if you are a product manager and you're going just to design. So first thing, get experience with the product. Second, they might or might not bring experience with the market when they join the company. Well, let's say you are in the crypto space. Uh, Maybe they have a lot of experience, maybe they don't. Be sure that they build enough knowledge about the market, and then of course start looking at the current plans, so things that are not yet implemented but they are in the pipeline, and start being familiar with what is next. Then at that point they might be ready to start contributing to the product.
Mhm. Yeah, makes sense. And are there any learning resources that you like to suggest? Again, let's imagine this junior
Yeah.
person also outside of work they want to get up to speed faster. Are there books or podcasts or videos or yeah anything that you would suggest they look at?
So I mean, I would expect you are someone with knowledge, right? So with the basic of, if you are a product manager, some let's say different levels. It can be a junior person or a senior person, but you still expect some at least theoretical knowledge of product manager and program management. So I would say no. If they no books specifically, if they, or at least not no books for everyone. What I mean is, one doesn't catch hold. So let's say that you bring on board a person and you realize that they are lacking some specific knowledge. You get just go into that direction and help them if that knowledge is needed for the role. Uh, in general, I would sponsor certification for people. So if you're hiring a project or program manager, maybe help them getting one of the PMI, the Project Management Institute certification. There are many there. The reason is not that. So I'm a big fan of certifications, but not because once you have it, then you can claim you understand everything, but more because as part of getting to the certification, you will need to structure all your knowledge around project and program management and get those foundation in place. And you don't have the risk of having just spotted knowledge, right? Knowing one thing here, oh, I know Agile, and then I know Kanban. It's okay, I know those two, right? But having a complete set of understanding of all the different methodology will allow you to become more effective. It doesn't mean you have to use all of them, right? But just knowing all of them will allow you to pick the right one.
Yeah, interesting. So the one you mentioned, you said Project Management Institute is
Yes,
the name. Okay,
PMI,
so
Project Management
all right,
Institute.
we'll make sure to add it in the description for people that want to maybe give a better look. And what, in your experience, founders or early startups often get wrong about? Let's put them all together, right? The product, program, project management. What are the biggest mistakes you see?
Uh, Postponing too much market fit. That's the thing that I see the most, because people fall in love with their ideas, and they self-convince themselves that that's the best thing to do, and they don't want to check with the reality. It's not, now I'm exaggerating, it's not that they don't want to do it on purpose, but they are so convinced they're doing the right thing that they say, okay, you know what, when we are ready, we will go and check. And they tend to spend maybe a year building a product to realize that they were wrong since the beginning, right? So market fit, understand your user, it can be done in the form of market analysis. It can be done in the form of user research studies. It can be done in the form of alpha tester. It can be done in many different ways. But try to get feedback from the rest of the world as early as possible to actually steer the direction of your product early enough. That's the thing that I have seen most of the startup not doing, right? Uh, yeah, I would say this is most probably the most common one.
Would you say is there any conviction that let's say people new to these disciplines have that are wrong? So they might believe uh, a wrong. They might believe a certain about a certain way of doing things that maybe it's detrimental or certain needs.
I believe that the root cause is that sometimes when we get in love with our ideas, we are really convinced that we are right. So we believe that
Mhm.
checking with user is just a waste of time. Or I don't want to share that with them an early stage version of my product because it sucks. I want to give them the super
Mhm.
polished version, right? So they
Yeah.
also fall in love with my idea. So this is wrong. Instead, you should find a way to present them an early product with all the
Yeah.
possible caveats, and then tell them, look, this is not how it will look like, but tell me what you see wrong in this current
Yeah.
product. Uh, as I said, it can be done in many different ways.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, and you might find people that love to interact with early stage products, right? So I think it's crossing the chiasm. Maybe was the book that
yeah,
popularized that graph. I mean, that was
yeah,
already popular, right? But early adopters and mass market. I would say that there are people that actually love the idea of getting to know a product that is very early stage and seeing it develop. It's hard to find those people because they might be only 5% of the population, but they're also the ones that maybe go more around product hunt and indie hackers and those websites and those forums, Reddit. So I think you can find them if you look well.
correct. I mean, if you're going after a B2C product, correct. If you're going after a B2B, just look at the market. If you know that you, let's say, I want to solve a big problem in the pharma market. I know that all pharma company are not able to solve this problem, and is a big pain for them. I'm just making this up. Now, my goal is to solve it. I know how to solve it. I'm just going to build a product to ship it. Start knocking the door to the pharma companies. Say, hey, I'm building a solution for the problem you have. Do you want to get it for free? Because, I mean, of course, we will commercialize this later on. But if you help us, and maybe we can run a test or just an alpha, whatever, with a small team across your company, you can tell us what you think, and you can use it for free, right? At some point, it's a win-win for them if you're really solving their problem. If you start knocking the door and people tell you, I don't have this problem, I don't have this problem, then you realize that you're making some wrong assumptions, right? So it's useful anyway.
Yeah, makes sense. And now the question that I think is the one where I expect most people to, let's say, take more time. Is there anything that mid-level or even senior people get wrong in people that work in the space? Any common mistake you see in senior product managers, in senior program managers that you would like to correct?
Sometimes what I've seen as a problem is uh, trying to ship the perfect process independently of what the company needs. One, what I usually say, what I was used to say to the people in my team was, And I had this team of very senior program managers, all coming from big tech, Amazon, and so on, and Google. And so I was telling them, look, you're all experienced. You know every single project management technique. Now, you don't have to use all of them. You are like getting, that's your toolbox, right? And you have all your tools. You have Agile, you have Waterfall, you have Kanban, you have everything in it. You don't have to get into a team and just throw the entire toolbox at them. That's not what they need. You just open the toolbox and said, okay, this is a nail. Let me get my hammer, and I just hammer it. But you can't hammer everything, right? So the problem I've seen many times is that you have these people that are so much into those perfect methodology that they believe that they can fit everywhere. So you will speak with some people, whether are full-time hired people or consultant. They will come to you and they will tell you after 5 minutes speaking with you, oh, I know that OKRs will solve all your problems, or I know that this other technology will solve all problems. In reality, they don't know. They're just very passionate about that methodology and they want to ship it. This is a major problem because program management done wrong results in bureaucracy. And what you really don't want is bureaucracy. Program management done in the right way will accelerate your product development because we'll look at the pain point and build process or build solution to just remove the pain point. Program management doing by the book, because those are the best practice, all big tech company are using them, so we should use them as well, is just creating useless or processes that are delivering very little value and have large costs, which means bureaucracy. So this is a common mistake you will see in many places, even by senior people.
Mhm. Yeah, it's funny to see how the patterns also are similar across different teams, right? Talking from my point of view, I also see it a lot in growth or marketing where people discover a lot of marketing tech stack opportunities they have and they start coming up with the perfect campaign where you are tracking everything and retargeting people, and then you start doing very complex attribution systems so that you know where money is coming from and you can optimize with AI the budget. But then they don't spend maybe 15 minutes thinking about the messaging, the positioning, what really drives the adoption of the product or the interest in the product. So yeah, I would say that's maybe the takeaway from your answer is we need to focus on really the core aspect of what we do. And while showcasing that we know a lot of complex tools might make us feel more valuable, maybe it's a way for some people to show that they know they know what they're talking about, oftentimes just creates unnecessary bureaucracy, as you said, unnecessary waste of time.
So just to make it, I think, even simpler, when I work with startups, the first question I ask is, when they ask me, how do we introduce this thing? I said, forget for a second. Tell me, what is the problem you want to solve? And you look at the problem and then find a solution. You don't look at a solution and find a problem for that solution. You first look at the problem, understand what is the cost of keeping the problem. If the cost is high, you might want to solve the problem. What are the best solution, right? And identify the one that is giving you the highest return on investment, right? So ideally low effort, big value.
Mhm. Yeah, I think you anticipated one of the next questions, which is great because then I can jump right into it. You mentioned you do, especially now, a lot of advising
Yeah.
for startups. By the way, for anyone that wants to get in contact with you, I guess they can reach out on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Um,
I can, maybe
so
we can add the link to my LinkedIn.
yeah, for sure. You also have a YouTube channel, by the way, which is called PM Yoda, correct?
Yeah, but
Where you talk
that's a
about these topics.
different thing. I mean, we can spend a second if you allow me on that one. Is a
Yeah, of
completely
course.
different
Please
thing.
do.
Is an educational channel. I don't use it to promote or let's say promote my business. Is as an advisor. Is more I want to bring more people into the project program management world. So I usually do Q&A, or the target
Yeah.
is anyone who is interested about project program manager. So it's slightly different goal than my advisor role. But yes, of course, if someone wants to learn about project program management, you're welcome to come.
Yeah, I'm sure that also founders can benefit from listening to some of those Q and A's you have with people following you. So definitely will be in the description. And So going back to your experience and work as an advisor, yeah, what is it that you do? What are the most valuable things you think you bring to the table when talking to a company as someone that is an experienced program manager and that saw a lot of different scenarios?
Yeah. In my experience, I kind of have two different types of engagement. One is what I would call the full advisor kind of role, which means I bring my experience and knowledge to and make it available to the founders. And we can have a very broad discussion about things that goes from we discuss their product priorities, we discuss their roadmaps. I help them figure out potential risks that they haven't identify in their plans. I help them identify missing things in their plan. I help them figuring out priorities, right? Sometimes it's easy to say we want to do these 10 things, but assume you have only capacity for 8. What are we going to do, right? Or you have capacity for 5. So it's important to have priorities, metrics, and many of those product related discussion. I also help them with discussion about organizational structure sometimes, processes, or also discussing around funding and other key discussion goes beyond product development. And that's what I do as an advisor. And then in some cases, some of these companies require my full-time or almost full-time presence is that I and then it becomes more a consultancy, right? So I get there and help them solve a problem, maybe as an advisor, and usually the two things blend into each other. As an advisor, we understand that there is something to be done and they don't have the skill and they might have the skill sets to help them, so I just move into more consultancy mode and I help them drive this project, and then I just go back to my advisory role and detach, but that's more project specific.
Yeah, makes sense. And trying to go even more practical. You already told us what is the first question you ask a startup when you talk to them. So what problem are you trying to solve? Let's say that they have that figured out. They raised a seed round between 1-3 million, so they have some budget. Would you say is there a recurring pattern in like, the tech stack that you suggest, like something that 80% of companies can use and be good with it without over complicating things? And also in terms of team setup, is there anything that you have seen usually works well for companies of that size? Assuming they're building, let's say, a SaaS product, right, to make it more focused, simpler to.
Reuse, I don't have a specific stack, but what I usually say is when you're small, you want to reuse as much as possible of what is available out there. So build on the shoulder of the giants, right? Don't go out and rewrite your Apache because you don't like, or you don't like WordPress, so you rewrite it yourself. Don't do it. Just take everything you can take. Focus your limited resources on the core of your business, not on the other stuff, which might means spending a little bit of time and giving your site to someone else, right, to be maintained and created, even if you know how to do it. But if that's not core of your product, focus the limited resources you have on the core part of your product and reuse as much as possible what is available outside. If you're building something new, it has to be because it's core of your product. If you're building something new just because you don't like the available implementation, I'm not sure is a good use of your time.
Yeah, also maybe I asked the question slightly wrong. So I was more thinking, is there any tech stack that you would suggest from a product management point of view? Like you could say most companies are okay just using Trello and
Uh,
structuring the work around it. Would you say is there any specific setup that usually works well enough for most
so
companies?
uh, on tooling, I'm not very opinionated. Use my only recommendation is use the fewest possible tools. If you start having Jira and then Trello and then you use Doc and then you have Drives and then you have uh, the proliferation of tools is what will kill the productivity of your company, because you start having all the information scattered around, piece here, a piece here, a piece here, a piece here, right? So try to just, I know that if you go after specific use cases, there is one tool which is the best for each use case, right? So for product management, this is the best. For program management, this is the best. For I don't know, for work, whatever, this is the best. You don't want to get in the situation of this fragmented set of tool. So be honest, when with some companies that I startups that I work, I said you start with Docs, and you're good with it. You
Mm.
just use the Google.
Yeah.
You already have Google Workspace. Start with Docs. When you see something that you can't do with Docs and is important for you, that justify adopting a new tool. If you just adopt another tool because it's cool, you're ending up very soon in the very fragmented space. So, and
Yeah.
also adopting a tool is expensive. You might need to buy licenses. Is expensive in terms of times. Uh, so again, not a good investment when you are in an early stage.
All right, perfect. Yeah, I think this is a very, very solid advice. So moving towards maybe let's call it the second part of this talk, which will be shorter. Don't worry, I'll let you go.
I
So,
was just saying I'm
and
sweating because it's if this was only half,
yeah,
I'm joking.
no, no, no. But yeah, focusing more on hiring. So I think the scenario for a lot of the people listening might be similar to what we have talked about during this talk. So I am a founder. I have some product vision, but I'm reaching a point where I'm thinking about hiring a first product program manager. Um, so let's start from there. How you touched on this before, but how does a founder know when to hire a new product manager? So in this case, maybe they already have either themselves or another one. Are there any indication of like, okay, now it's time to start looking for someone new?
Yeah. The usually the short answer is you have to feel the pain. If you feel the pain
Mm.
of not having another product manager, if that is really hurting the velocity your company is delivering, right? You can't deliver stuff because you don't have a person taking care of it. That's the time to hire. Don't hire because it's
Yeah.
fancy to have one programmer. I mean, and usually there are all these people hiring CPO, chief product officers, right?
Yeah.
It's fancy to have a chief product officer. It's fancy to have a chief marketing officer. It's fancy to have a CTO, but you can't have all of them on day one, right? You have to
Yeah.
focus. What are the key roles you need? And usually nobody knows. You don't just look in the mirror and said, "Oh, today I need a CTO." Usually my limit test is you have to feel the pain. If you feel the pain, if you feel
Mhm.
that you can't get work done, your company is low, you can't get that stuff done, and it's important because investors are yelling at you, because users are yelling at you, because you are not happy, then you need to fix it. And many times the solution to fix that problem is hire a talent who can help you fixing the problem. Because as
Mhm.
a founder, you're already working 200% of your time, so it's unlikely you have the
Yeah,
capacity.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, indeed. And do you think there is a common way of structuring product teams that you think works? So I'm thinking maybe some companies might have different type of customers, or some other companies might have different parts of their product. Do you think there are any guidelines on deciding whether to hire product managers that are vertical on different areas? Yeah.
All flavors of organizational structure are effective to some extent. Um, Organizations have to reflect accountability. So, how do you organize your company by okay, we the entire discussion that is happening at the executive level is done by customers. Then most probably you need one person accountable for each customer or for each group of customers, right? And so it's likely that what you want is an organization that is customer oriented. It's going to be a little bit difficult, but because your customer base will grow and you can't just keep reorganizing. But this is just an example. You might decide that you want areas by products, right? Typical example, Google is organized this way. You have cloud, you have ads, you have search, and then within that organization, you have a senior vice president for each. Then within each organization, you will have a product lead, a tech lead, a program lead, a UX lead, those kind of each function is within a product area. But you can also imagine having a single organization where you have the product lead, the program lead, the tech lead, all reporting directly to the CEO. And each of them has responsibility across all products. It's not that one is better than the other, it's about driving accountability. So if you need to drive accountability by product, it's a good idea to have product designed this way. If you want to keep it more flexible, so organization designed this way by product. If you want to keep it more flexible, maybe designing by function and have the function mix and match how many people are one product or the other is way more flexible, right? But you will have a little bit more difficult time to drive accountability. Just to say, all flavors are good. Again, it has to solve the specific need you have.
Mhm. Yeah, I think what you said is perfect. So structure based on how you want accountability is something that I kind of forgot about, but now as you said it, I remember it's also mentioned in, I believe, Raising the Bar, which is a great book about how Amazon works, and I think they mentioned a similar thing. They were struggling when the ownership was not given based on the the thing they wanted to make people accountable for. So if you are reporting based on customer segment and you are saying, okay, enterprise customers are not growing, you need to have someone that is responsible for that segment of customers. Maybe not only that segment of customer, but they need to be focused on it in some capacity. Otherwise, it's going to slip through the cracks.
Absolutely. I love. I don't remember who said this, but uh, if something has two owners, there is no owner. So you want for each problem or each area a single owner accountable to drive. Then maybe the same person can own multiple, as you said, but it's important that for a single area you have a single owner. Otherwise, when you start having problems, they will keep bouncing the responsibility between the different owners, and you will not get to a problem solution. Sorry.
And where do you find good product managers? So let's say that you decided, okay, now it's time to hire someone. Other than in the PM Yoda community that that you're building, yeah, where would you suggest to our founders, like, okay, go to this community, to these websites, or maybe there is a specific strategy that you can put in place? Do you have any suggestion?
I mean, honestly, I have a large network of product and program managers, so I usually try first in my network, but I hired a good number of people last year, and none of them came from my network. They were all coming from job posting I made on LinkedIn, or on the corporate website. You have to be prepared when you go that broad. You will get everything but the cat, right? So you will get very qualified people and people who doesn't satisfy a single requirement. So there is a little bit of um, cost in terms of time investment if you are a startup owner and you have to review 100 candidates. uh, it's a little bit annoying, but also is a nice problem to have if you have too many candidates for your role. So my recommendation is usually, no matter how big is your network, go broad and see what you get, and learn how to be fast at reviewing a large amount of CVs. There might be some false negative in the way you review them, but that's part of the risk when you review a lot of CVs.
Yeah,
So,
and do you have any filter that you use for yourself to maybe skim through to those faster? Any indicator that's like, okay, this person is good that you can identify just from
it
the
depends.
CV
It
or from
depends
the
what I'm
application?
I'm looking for. Uh, Many of the people I hired last year were supposed to be managers of program managers, right? And so they were not individual contributors. I mean, I also hire some individual contributors, but for instance, if I'm hiring a program manager, in my head, I think about the complexity of the team or the complexity of the work if they are IC they have to deal with, right? And this to me is natural. It's usually easy to understand the complexity of the role I want to give them, and then look at their CV, skim through, and understand if what they describe as a similar complexity. It's not an easy
Mhm.
thing I can just search in the CV and find a keyword.
Yeah.
It's about matching the experience of the person. It's not about how many years. It's not about how many. It's a combination. It's not. It's the number of years. It's the number of technologies. The number of engineers. Is um, the impact of the projects they completed in the past. Is a mix of all this indication. And now, usually, what you do, you skim first. Said no, nope. You
Mhm.
just trash it, or you said, okay, this person might have, right? You don't have any certainty. That's where
Mhm.
you might have false negative because some people are just bad at writing their CV. And so they might have the skill, but they're not able to represent them into their CV. And so they just get trash, even if they were
Yeah.
good
Yeah, I think
candidates.
that's a necessary compromise that you need to do if you want to actually hire someone. Otherwise, you'll spend years interviewing people. Do you think that skills are highly transferable from large organizations to smaller ones? So, to give you an example, sometimes people use as a hiring strategy going to bigger companies and filtering for like product managers or head of growths or marketing managers that worked in those companies, and let's say based on the fact that they have that experience, they believe that they are potentially good hires. But at times, instead, you are a bit afraid of they worked at Google, so they are too far away from a small startup. The skills are not going to be transferable. They're going to expect us to build a huge team around them. Do you see this as a problem in your field?
Uh, I feel depends on what you're hiring for. If you have big plans to grow, maybe hiring someone who went through an hyper growth in a similar role in a company which is now big, but when they joined was smaller, is a big advantage. They learn the pain of going through an hypergrowth. They learn what it means to build teams. They learn what it means to just have more and more organization created over time. Might be an asset. If you don't have this plan, maybe it's less valuable, but maybe you need the subject matter expertise, right? You're building a new product. Let's say you want to build a new, I don't know, email client, and is the product lead of Gmail a good candidate for you? I would say maybe you are much smaller than Google, but they can bring an expertise in that field that will make a large difference for you. So there is a well-known bias, which is about giving attribution for people based on the university they studied or the company they work for. Is a bias. You have to test people based on the skill they have, not based on where they studied or where they work for. It's true that in majority of the cases, the fact that they work at Google means they pass the difficult interview process at Google and they were a great fit for that role. It doesn't mean they are a great fit for your role. So of course, it might help in when you're reviewing CV, saying, okay, this person had exactly the same role I need in five big companies. They might have the skills I need, uh, but then you have to question and to ask them if they are ready to work in a much smaller company. It's not that they cannot, right? But make it clear since the beginning, if you're not going for an hyper growth, so tell them, said, oh, I love your experience, but look, you're going to be the only product manager, and we're not going to hire any more product manager, at least for this year. So it's completely different setup that you're used to at a big company. In general, means that big companies are roles are very specialized, so they are very vertical. You become a deep expert on a specific technology or on a specific product, while in a startup, you are more likely to become a generalist. You cover at the same time multiple roles. You learn about the product, the technology, the marketing. Maybe you touch a little bit here and there, right? So the person has to be willing to go through this change. If they are, and you set the expectations since the beginning, then you can go into the skill. Do they have the skill to operate in such setup? Yes or no? But I would say I would not be biased neither in a positive or negative way just based on where someone works.
All right. And yeah, to close this off, how do you like to test the candidates, right? So you did the first filtering. Now you have a series of people you believe could be good fits. Are there any go-to questions or homeworks, like projects you give them to do after the interview, that you think are particularly good at filtering people? Of course, again, there are a lot of differences based on the company you're hiring for and the role, but maybe there are some common things that you like to do.
So, no, I do have some my favorite question, but I'm not going to disclose them because otherwise that will just become
Oh,
public.
of course.
That's no, but that's sad. I'm joking. It largely depends on what is the role you're hiring for, right? So if you're hiring for a more junior role, you should expect this person to be very solid on the foundational knowledge, understand the terminology, understand the technology, understand the different methodologies. The more it becomes a senior role, the more you expect this person to show leadership, maybe people management if that's required, ability to deal with complex and difficult situations, because that's what senior program managers are doing. It's not that we show up and we read emails and say, oh, that's a nice day. You get all the hot potatoes that nobody else wants to deal with, right? Okay, this product is not just going to deliver. And by the way, we promised this to the government. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
I don't know, right? We need to come up with a solution. That might be we deprioritize something else and give all the resources, which will not make people happy. Or I'm just saying, you got all the hot potatoes on your plate, and sometimes there is no easy answer to these hot potatoes. So when I interview very senior people, I throw them into these scenarios. I tell them, no, now let me take something I had to deal last week. Maybe I anonymized it a little bit and said, oh, now you got this one. How do you deal with this? And there might not be a solution for the problem because it's a problem without a solution, but you have to deal with the situation, right? So this is what I tend to, the way I try to approach interviews. In general, the way I structure the interview is if they pass, I do myself the CV screening. Maybe a recruiter is helping if there are a lot, but I can do up to 50 per day. If there are more than that, I ask recruiting to help, but up to 50, which is usually a decent high number, I can deal myself with those. I do the screening. If they pass the screening, I give them one interview, which is about the foundation of program management or project management. They have to know the terminology, the methodology, the technology. I ask people to just dig into the knowledge in this space. If they pass this one, usually I give them something in the area of the specific product or program they have to. So subject matter expertise. Say you have to work on infrastructure. Okay. Give them maybe from an engineer or maybe from another program or product manager. Be sure that they understand the area, they understand the nuances of working in that specific context. And then if they pass this one, I run the last interview, which is usually about leadership and people management if required. This is more or less the structure I use for the interview panels.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So if anyone wants to discover which your favorite questions are, they'll need to go through an interview with you. But that said, Marco, it was really, really great having you here. Thanks a lot for sharing all your suggestions and overall knowledge on the topic with us. I'm sure that by now people will feel more confident when either hiring for any of the PM roles or maybe having to do some of the things themselves. So yeah, thanks again in the name of Rapido for joining. And I remember to everyone following this that you can find Marco both on LinkedIn and on his YouTube channel, PM Yoda. Is there anything else that you would like to add? Any call to action that you want to?
No,
To share?
thanks for inviting me. I think it was very fun and engaging. So have a good day or a good night,
Perfect.
or I don't know at what time you are watching this, but see you.
Yeah, probably at night because they are startup founders, so that's when
Right.
they have
They
time to
don't they
listen to
don't
this.
sleep, right? They don't sleep, they use the time. Instead
Exactly.
of sleeping, they watch podcast. Okay. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
which is terrible, by the way. Go to sleep if it's past 1 a.m. where you are. All right. Bye, everyone.